The other nice way about the way and the timing of which we think about strategy at Kellogg is because we teach it first, and because we teach it in this way of it's a framework to fit in inputs, we also use it to fit in the other disciplines that we teach within Kellogg. That if a firm is going to maximize profits, it's not just about the economics, it's not just about the strategy, it's about all of the different disciplines we have here, the marketing, the finance, the accounting, and we set you up for the ability to put all of these disciplines together, which is what you really need to be able to succeed when you leave Kellogg.
Yeah, I think one of the unusual things about Kellogg is that we teach strategy very first, not just in our full-time program, but across a bunch of our different programs. And in many schools, strategy is taught as a capstone course, and there's reasons for that. But I really like the fact that we teach it first here and that we give students at the very beginning this set of big picture tools that help them fit and give context to all the sort of functional things that they're going to study when they come later. And so that as they are delving more specifically into nitty-gritty functional areas in marketing or in operations or in finance or in accounting, they've got a context in which to plug those things to understand how the choices made in those specific areas matter for the overarching strategy and the overarching long-run profit objective of the firm.
I think one thing that's important about how we approach thinking about strategy at Kellogg is the degree to which we have a team of faculty that work together on this. So there are at any one time between 8 and 9 faculty that are working across our 3 programs, our 3 primary programs, thinking about how do we best communicate the ideas of strategy to our students. And that's thinking both about maybe new applications for frameworks, but also a series of examples that we use. And as a result, when you come to Kellogg, no matter how you interact with the faculty when it comes to strategy, you're getting our view of how we think about maximizing long-term profits and how we think about making you a better thinker about long-term profitability of your firm. But ultimately, the material we're giving you is part of a very coordinated effort to have a viewpoint on what it means to be a better thinker about strategy.
I agree. I think it's really terrific that we teach as a team for a couple of different reasons, one of which is that we have so much expertise in different areas that comes from our research expertise.
The course is a lot about examples and pattern recognition. So we're going to give you economic frameworks, and then we're going to really, to use your term, stress test those frameworks through a lot of different applications. That's good for the students because it allows them to really try out the material again and again. It also allows us to have a mix of new and old examples to show students that a lot of the problems they face were true in 1960 and they're true today. But also there are some things that we're dealing with now that we never dealt with before. We have an expanded focus on thinking about the idea of network effects in the economy and how that might be different in a technology economy as opposed to a more manufacturing-based economy. And so by having all of these different examples, it allows us to push and probe on the new phenomena that we see emerging in the economy.
One of the things I like best about many of the cases that we've chosen for the course is that they go over a long period of time, right? We tend to favor cases not about, one really specific decision that we focus in on, but cases that go over a long period of time where you can see a company with a single set of DNA facing multiple different choices or multiple different contexts, and you can see how strategy evolves. And so that's oftentimes what we choose for the long, full-length case discussions that we spend an entire class on. But I also like the fact that we complement these with sort of smaller case discussions. So as we are first introducing material, we oftentimes use popular press newspaper articles, right, that give us little snapshots that focus on something more specific, where the task is less to kind of sort out from lots of detail what's important, but give us a chance to focus in on something very particular. And those, of course, are very fun to choose and to create a variety of things that go over a number of industries and sectors and countries. I'm always glad when we can find something that's about a region of the world that we don't have as well represented, or an industry that we don't otherwise talk about. I enjoy showing students that the set of strategy frameworks that we're teaching them are useful for more than just large publicly traded firms, right? That they're useful for small firms, they're useful for growing firms, they're useful for firms in nonprofit sectors who face a lot of the same kinds of questions, even if the ultimate objective is fulfilling some other kind of mission or some other kind of orientation than long-term profit maximization.
If anything, the role of government has grown over time in how firms think about profitability. Certainly over the last 10 years, we've seen a greater involvement of the government in the economy. And because of that, we have to give students the tools for thinking about how you maximize profits in that setting. It's part of a broader effort at Kellogg. We think about the public-private interface. Within healthcare, this is obviously something I think a lot about, given the role of government with that. But more broadly in financial services and other areas, thinking carefully about how you interact with the government changes the type of strategic decisions you might make. That's certainly true as you go into a more global context as well, where the relative strength or weakness of the government matters a lot. We're teaching more and more cases about firms located somewhere on the continent of Africa, in which the rule of government differs quite a bit and requires you to think more about maybe informal contracts or non-governmental institutions that can serve the role of maybe the strong government support you were used to before. I think ultimately the goal of strategy at Kellogg is to give you tools such that they're broad enough that they apply to all of these different areas. If you're in the nonprofit sector and you want to maximize the public good instead of profits, it requires a very small tweaking of what we teach you, and then everything sort of follows through in the same way. If you put the employer hat on, I think that the idea of what we're giving you is that you can train your students about your particular industry. It's difficult for you to train them to be a good thinker. And so we're giving you people that you can succeed in taking them to where they need to be for your particular firm, and we've given them the tools to where they can be successful there.
We don't have a view of the world or a view of the company where strategy is sort of an isolated function that's off by itself and sort of does its own thing, but rather that we're hoping that we're training students who will go to all the different functional roles in the company with this big picture idea of understanding how what they do, the nitty-gritty of what they do, maps into and fits into a larger strategy of the company.
Yeah, I think if you take a step back and think about what we're trying to accomplish when we teach the course the way we do, when we teach about strategy at Kellogg, it is about the fact that strategy is part of every decision that you make at the firm. So some of the frameworks we're giving them is saying, listen, the world is going to be one in which you have to deal with these eventualities. How can we help you make the right decision in an uncertain world as opposed to the decision that everyone else is making?
And this is fundamentally what makes strategy making hard.
Yep.
It's fundamentally what makes our jobs fun, and is fundamentally why we work so hard to teach them ultimately to be good thinkers, to give them a skill that we think is going to be valuable over the next 30 years of their career. Not sort of the current fad, not the current set of institutional details, but a robust intellectual skill that's going to carry them successfully through the rest of their career.
Yeah, and I think, I know actually, because we work together very closely, that we both end our classes sort of the same message, which is that the rewards you're going to get there is you're going to get even harder and more difficult problems to solve. That's the reward for success here, and that we're trying to give you the tools to manage those harder problems.